It's up to do that. So it's quite late now in California, and a lot of my subscribers and Discord members are asking me to do a Sterling MMAT George interview reaction. Tomorrow is gonna be a very tricky day because volatility sort of revert and exhaust itself, and I have some pretty interesting bets going on tomorrow. But hey, if you guys really want the content, I'll just make it right now. So I'm gonna do a reaction to Sterling's video that he interviewed George and Kenneth Rice, whatever you call him. And big props for Sterling that he actually flew over to interview those two guys, and let's see what kind of information that they gave out. Here it is. So right out of the bat, Sterling asked, I don't know if you guys can hear it because there's a lot of noise. Maybe, you know what, this is why I'm really appreciative to number two and, all of the camera crews and people who does photography for us, for the company that I work for as a consultant, and for number two who have just good equipment that will eliminate noise. In those environments, if we make those kind of videos, there's going to be less noise there. But hey, if they're just filming like that, it's it's the best they can do. And what is interesting is Sterling asks, are all the meetings going well? It's more like a rhetorical question. It's like, hey, if everything's going well. And George is like, yeah, we had a meeting and had a lot of meeting with OEMs. What is funny is I actually work for one of those large OEMs that they are kind of talking to, but not really. I was going to go to CES, Las Vegas 2022, because my boss asked me. He also even booked my ticket already. And then he asked me if I want to go. I said no because school start. But then when I come back, Masters actually got really canceled, but not really, went online. So I have another month, maybe a month and a half of online class. I should have went. And then my boss ended up taking how should we call him? Anyways, it's just very interesting stuff that they're talking about what is going on in CES. And in Vegas there are a lot of trade shows and automotive shows and all this kind of stuff. A lot of times I will go, but because I go on company budget, that's why I can't really make videos. If I can sneak some in, I'll let you guys know, and maybe I will stream if my boss agree with it. I mean, he probably likes it, but I never really ask him that question about this. But yeah, so basically, the main purpose of going to those trade shows is connect with customers. For them, they're connecting with either a cheaper supplier or a better distributor, or someone will hook them up with any market that will give them any potential that want to use metamaterial in this case. Okay, so I know you guys probably cannot really hear it that clearly, so I have the subtitles on. And what is interesting is George's body language and Mr. Rice's body language is just funny. He's looking over there and oh, who is this guy? And then George always touches his leg. He's actually quite nervous for some reason. It's funny. Okay, so I skipped ahead a little bit, and then now they're talking about the nanoweb.
Willow glass is very unique because it's a flexible glass, so you can go down to 50 microns, thinner than paper.
Well, in here, George is being really technical here, talking about Willow Glass and then the probability of them forming a partnership with Willow Glass. But the thing is, if you go look at the market potential of Willow Glass and all those kind of glasses, no matter how much they eventually decided to partner up or becoming a part of the manufacturing chain, the margin that George will have will be really low, because right now his margin is still low until the report for the road-to-road production comes out. Because right now, so for those of you who don't know how manufacturing works, because I worked techniques still working for the OEM as a consultant, and we go see warehouses and factories. There are a lot of intricate processes in trying to make a functional factory, and there are a lot of bottlenecks. And then for people who just started to do industrial production, like what they're doing, I went and interviewed some Intel executives who used to hold a patent that George bought for whatever they were using for roll-to-roll. What they're saying is roll-to-roll production actually requires some interesting manufacturing management stuff going on in there. And then because they're having their own facility and then distribution, warehouse management, all this kind of stuff, and because their products are so diversified to an extent where they don't have a go-to-market strategy, therefore there might be some operational hazard coming in. Hopefully they're prepared for it. I mean, again, from a startup / idea company to a company that actually requires production and dealing with real OEM and dealing with real market problems, there's some hurdles to go through. But if you believe in this company and if you believe in the potential of metamaterial, let's just take the management aside because everybody knows that I have problems with this management due to the way how they do things. But again, like my job is literally figuring out what management does wrong and then go in as a consultant and trying to fix their problems, basically, or sometimes be basically an interim CEO, try to run things for some companies. So it could be my pet peeves that I spot all of those flaws and I point them out. And then now a lot of people talk to me about it. I was like, yeah, this is sort of like it's a disability that I got from my job, or just I spot them a lot.
And it's flexible, so
So in that component, they were talking about sourcing materials, and one of the major challenges for the metamaterial to work is in order to keep their costs low, when inflation goes high, it actually hurts the company because their general materials still sourced from not really rare metal, but regular metal, and a portion of rare metal or a portion of metals that aren't that expensive. But due to freight changes, which is oil price increase and delivery changes, their cost basis would actually increase dramatically. And because they're not at scale yet, therefore the first 2 quarters or 3 quarters when their production just started, their cost basis will pile up. So then the first year, there's no way they will make money or become remotely profitable because they're going to face a lot of issues when they're leading into production or going into production. And as we know, they don't have right now they don't have enough sell orders or buy order, purchase orders to really sustain their economic of scope. Therefore, their manufacturing process is going to run into some problems later on.
And it's also application specific. So aerospace wants the absolute, Lamborghini these products with OEMs. So they guide us and they de-icing and defaulting function all in the same material. That has never happened before.
So right now he's talking about the de-icing, or you remember the film that, where is it? So for example, right, if you have, so one of the things that first of all I really like about metamaterial is they are capable of doing those kind of things. One of the things that in our earlier videos we talk about the potential of metamaterials to deflect light, and then another thing is they can sort of manipulate how heat builds moisture. So if you look at this way, let's see if you can see this. It's running in front of my camera, right? Yeah. So this, if you look at this bottle, right? So you want to know that the reason why you have moisture build on the outside or on the inside is because usually the inside temperature is higher than the outside temperature, and because my room is really cold, you form this sort of like a moisture or driplets of water. And then so how metamaterial will solve this is one of the reasons that I actually first invested in the company was because they have this film, which I mean, again, their management, their marketing kind of sucked because there are 2 applications that they're not really putting into their go-to-market strategy, and I know people wanted to use that kind of material. But it's just what it is. It's their marketing or their go-to-market strategy, the department's fault of not picking up those markets. And I think it's really good. So what they do is if you have metamaterial implanted or inside of this layer, it literally will just be very transparent, like no matter like, the heat differences, like especially, a good implication that you could use is, on car windows and all those kind of stuff, But again, they will it will significantly sort of increase the cost on the consumer side, because when car manufacturers decided to put and implement those kind of technology in their cars, especially in an experimental stage, it is really risky for them. So they will apply a really high discount rate when they're dealing with those OEMs or dealing with those companies who are supplying those things. And then consumers are eventually hurt. And then if consumers doesn't see this value, this product will just die out.
So it takes time to educate the OEM and start thinking, okay, where can we go?
Yeah, see, he talks about educating an OEM. This is literally what I talk about in my old videos. I talk about, a lot of the problems they're going to face is going to be customer conversion, or what we call OEM conversion. And if you work in the area of OEMs, you will know that OEM conversion takes literally 5 to 6 years for a lot of things to roll out. And 2 weeks ago, I talked to someone who works in TI, Texas Instruments, for those of you who don't know, and we're talking about the potential of having metamaterial or photon chips for, semiconductors, and we realized that the cost basis that they're dealing with, and then if we're doing it at scale and we're doing it, in terms of like production efficiency and in terms of like transformation or conversion efficiency, there's no way it will happen in the next 4 years. So that market he probably cannot tap.
And how big volumes, etc., become part of the discussion.
See, now he talks about volume. Well, if you do OEM business or you're a manufacturer, right now he's like a manufacturer who owns a patent for certain things, or like more like a hardware company. So if you're like that, that literally just means that you're really reliant on what your OEM's, like basically what your OEM supply chain is. And then in order for you to make more money, because your implied margin is so low, you have to produce by volume. But in order to produce by volume, we go back to your initial problem. He needs to do customer conversions, which he doesn't hire anyone who do that. So yeah.
It's actually 12. 11 is when the volume.
We kind of talked about how you get there, different options. Would you say that's what separates you from your competitors? And do you see people more so as competitors, or could you help them with our technology to make them better, basically? So almost not direct competitors, but you almost help them to make them better.
So we joke with Ken that
I always joke about the fact that we're B2B companies, so we're kind of like BASF. BASF says they don't make the products, they make them better. We make them much better. So right now, our competition, I would say we don't really have direct competitors today.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, what we have is we have alternatives. People have their own views.
Well, this is funny. Like, you should never talk to a finance guy about whether you have competitors or not. For those of you who know, I was a consultant. We dab in startups, and 2 of my startups failed in college. We did a lot of pitches. We know a lot of investors. We know a lot of VCs. Every time we went pitching, and if we listen to a finance person talk, I mean, I'm also a finance person, but I'm more realistic in terms of like projections. If you ask them, like if you ask an entrepreneur, like he majorly does finance all the time. It's really funny. It's like an inside joke. Like if you ask, if you have competitors, they will always say, no, we don't have direct competitors. We always have alternatives. But alternatives are competitors. I bet you if Sterling asked Kent whether, can you list a list of competitors that, keep you awake at night or something like that, he probably have no idea what really is gonna, hurt them in the long run. There are 2 companies that will potentially hurt them in the long run. One is a Chinese company, and the other one is based, well, actually 3. The other one is a Chinese company that have super low cost. Second one is a Israeli company that have something sort of similar, but not really, but the application is different. And then you have another US company. And of course you have, Team Meta, who already does like the antenna stuff, and they have secured a lot of contracts. So yeah.
What else they might be able to do in lieu of what we do. And so as George just explained,
All right, who cares about missions? Let's go.
vendor risk, one supplier or tier two. So being on the Nasdaq allows us to raise capital more efficiently than.
Well, let's just say, will it really help you raise capital more efficiently if the stock goes like this? Sorry, I'm being salty a little bit today. The thing is, if it goes like this, then we all know that the midline conversion is around like $4 or whatever at this point, maybe a little bit lower, 3.3 or whatever. If they do a reverse split, then it's pretty bad. It is pretty bad. But again, if they do a reverse split, their company's fair value will go back to before the merger. Some people might think it makes sense because the merger actually doesn't really provide any value but liquidity, and they consider the general market is going down. That means the liquidity risk that investors endure will be higher. Therefore, the value of a Nasdaq listing actually just doesn't exist anymore. Do I need to rewind? If you want to listen to that statement again, go back and re-listen to it.
Exchange, especially the junior exchanges, and that gives confidence to an OEM to do business with us and trust us that we can actually execute and grow.
Well, actually, in order for an OEM to have, first of all, you have to know people. Like it's mostly referral, and for those who know, like who are the biggest OEMs right now in the world? Can I hear it? Yes, you have China, you have people in Vietnam, and you have people who does outsourcing in South America. There are minimum amount of them are in the US and in Europe. So what they're really dealing with are Asian people like me, who are kind of retarded in its own way, and then we really care about cost and really care about and another thing about OEM is, think about it, right? If you can make money on this product, why wouldn't I make it, right? If you're an OEM, I'm basically your supplier. So one of the reasons you cannot land a huge contract with OEM is B, the technology is not matured yet, and C, OEM thinks the risk conversion is too high, and then D is literally because you haven't reached the quantity volume yet. So I think they fit all three of those categories, therefore no OEM is willing to take a big order from them.
That access to the capital is one, and then
Also, just another thing about capital. Right now, they acquired a company. Let's just say they have 150 millions, right? I don't remember the specific numbers because I did those videos months ago. Let's just say they have 80 million left over or 70 million left over. In a market downturn, you have to pay your payroll, right? You have to pay your payroll every single year. And then because the Fed is really stressing on the inflation issue, therefore, will have wage inflation. Therefore, all payroll will probably increase by about 15%, and the overall cost will increase by 15%. And then because you have a new operation center that manufactures stuff, that means your total operation cost will increase. That means your entire cost basis will increase. So this year might actually not be a good year for nanomaterial because I wonder how fast it will burn the cash left over. Especially in a very bad market, and especially when they actually don't have operational income. So like it's really bad to compare them with SpaceX because they're not near the level of SpaceX, and SpaceX actually have some preferable shareholders and have a lot of stakeholders in NASA, which give them contracts. But then for nanomaterial, the government actually doesn't give them any subsidies. Well, the Canadian government does, but it's on a very interesting basis in terms of like how they're doing it. So they're actually not getting a lot of subsidies, and because they're not getting subsidies, that means they're just burning cash every moment. So if I were George, I probably won't be able to fall asleep at night. Why? Because by the end of 2026 or 2025, technically 2024-ish, because we're already in 2022. Yeah. In 2024, no matter what you do, all of the money you have on hand is already burned out. And then 3 years of burn time, maybe less, maybe those $1 million will probably only last you about 1.5 years to 2 years because you're hiring more and more people, and then those people's wages will increase. I'll be very worried, and then because Nasdaq liquidity will go down as interest rate hikes, it's kind of sad to think about it. And he needs to worry about it right now. Like, I mean, of course, you can't really do anything about it, but it's just something to keep in mind of.
Space. I wish we didn't have to become a manufacturer. In fact, when we started the company, we thought that
See, here's one of the things that the reason why in Canada wouldn't help you with this is, if you invent chips in Canada and then you use the patent to manufacture somewhere else, but you're based in the US, you get a lot of liquidity, you get a lot of investors. But let's just say all of their technologies are great, right? I mean, let's just be honest, probably like only 50% or maybe 20% of it is actually really, really good or quote unquote unique, because there are other people who are developing similar things. Especially over the past few months that, I did more research, I interviewed more people, I dig more deep into this industry, those kind of stuff. By becoming a manufacturer literally means their fixed costs will increase dramatically. Therefore, they need the liquidity. But again, like the reason why they merged with Torch is because they literally are on the verge of bankruptcy when the merger happens. So, yeah.
supply chain, we could actually design the materials and license them for somebody else to manufacture them.
See, here's the thing, like his entire business model is based on licensing. But what he doesn't realize is in order for the licensing stuff to work, you have to have a relationship with people who are willing to buy those licenses. And then the thing is, OEMs during this period of time right now, right? Because, let's just be honest, semiconductor plantations are overbooked. A lot of things are overbooked. Supply chain are fucked. During a time where supply chain are fucked, they really, really don't want to switch to small, I don't know how to licensor. I don't know. There's a specific name for it, and then they're not inclined to go partner up with the company that George has. And let's just be honest. What are some like actual essential things that George might produce you, like the glasses? But the thing is, the glasses industry haven't been, evolved. Like it's always been evolving, but it doesn't really like. There's no disruptive technology in the past 20 years. Not really. Well, actually, technically 15 years, because there's a raw material that actually help your glasses to not break that easily. But anyways, so then he want to infiltrate into that market. That market is actually really hard because the market is so saturated. So AR and VR glasses, but all of these glass manufacturers or all of those like eyewear companies are already like trying to get into the space after Facebook, aka Meta, decided to, go into this whole metaverse sort of thing. And then the market is really saturated. If he cannot get the distribution channel or the sales channel or go-to-marketing figured out, it's really dangerous. Let's just say they're walking on edge right now.
Like almost like a software company, a design house. I'll give you an example. Our first EMI shielding application was aerospace. We have customers that have paid money up to $10,000 a piece to have our technology in their product space. So in our website we have announced that we are working in the microwave oven space, and there's a video here and a demo that you can see. So think of that, it's still the same application, it's EMI shielding. They're both transparent. Obviously I'm not going to make an oven that's just $10,000 for the door, right? I may only sell a few of those, if any.
Well, sorry, I put my own video up there. So basically in here, what you do realize is basically what George is describing is a product transition. So when you're building a prototype and other people is willing to buy your prototype for basically give you money to help like research certain things, right? Like, the aerospace things. But the thing is, when you're producing in volume or when you are actually trying to make money, those things don't really make money. Like you have to, because they're a B2B company, right? Because they're B2B companies, in order for them to make money, they either have to get more and more contract, which means more and more product, which they actually don't have time to really research or get. Other than that, it would be like product improvement, right? But the thing is, for a hardware company to do a lot of product improvement, it's really hard. Therefore, there's only two ways for them to pivot. One is becoming a manufacturer, which they did, which is a higher cost one. And the second one, which I don't really want to cover here because it's a little bit complicated, by actually merging into a company that is willing to use their technology for something else. Anyways, continue.
Right. But the point is that it takes time to transition from an aerospace high-tech product to something that's super high volume in the millions of units. So suppliers.
So, but how about donuts? Do you think that's a key step we're waiting on, or not necessarily?
So it was a key step about 6 months ago.
Yeah, I think if you look at the genesis of the company since the last 12 months, when we started, we announced in December last year that we were doing the deal with Torchlight and such. Halifax was pivotal to the company. Why? Because it was going to house our internal rotor production capability, along with all of our R&D and all of our development. Then what happened was the Torchlight deal turned into a much more liquid transaction than I thought it would. It gave us a lot more flexibility. We went and bought Nanotech. Nanotech brought with it a facility in Thurso that is already capable of producing millions and millions of square meters a year of film. And so what we did was Halifax is still really important because
Awkward. So this is why this is awkward is basically what he is saying is, hey, we bought Nanotech, they already have the capacity to produce, therefore we actually wasted money on getting the our own manufactured plantation. That's literally, look at his face. Let's look at George's face too. Like, oh, this is so funny. It's like, oh, we didn't anticipate that this deal is gonna be so lucrative. It's so funny. It's like when you go talk to investment bankers and you get your valuation, they're like, oh yeah, your valuation is from this to that, and then they never realize retail investors will FOMO this much, and then they actually got lucky. But the thing is, the way how they were spending the money isn't that productive. George needs to hire a CFO that also knows about the product. I don't think he knows the product space that well. Not really knowing about the product, it's about knowing about the market, the marketability of the product. It is what it is, right? I mean, I can talk about hires all day long. I can talk about all these kind of all day long. That's what I do for a living.
68,000 square feet.
Yes. And so if you want to develop a new application, so something new comes our way, which happens almost every day. So where do you do that? Where do you develop that application? So that's where Halifax comes in. And that's why we need 12 clean rooms. 11. Think of each clean room can handle one.
So basically, all of the clean rooms, I know we talk about this in Discord. I think one person came up, talk about it. I don't remember who brought it up. Or did we ever brought it up? It was really weird if you look at the blueprints. There's a lot of clean rooms and all this kind of stuff, and everybody's like, oh, do they need that much things? I mean, they do, because you're producing nano films, and if you're producing nanofilms, you really need those precautionary protocols. And from what he's saying, what George is saying is he's literally saying that we're doing a lot of R&Ds and trying to figure out, is there any product application that we don't know about, or trying to get a new feature. But the only problem is, if you were a CEO of a company, you should have a very clear vision of what your go-to-market is. Right now, they're still looking for their go-to-market, which if you are an institutional investor, it is a really big red flag. This is why a lot of institutional investors actually exited. And for those people who are like, oh my God, but BlackRock have a lot of shares, but JP Morgan have a lot of... Wow. The thing is, if you look at the funds that are invested in this, they're market-making funds. So, yeah, I think I explained it. Alright, how long is this video now? I have no idea.
In our terminology, that's almost 350,000 square meters of film. Okay. If you asked us a year ago, when would we be able to us the ability, the combination of the capital and the facilities to leapfrog.
Well, they actually have a small. Remember Boris? What's his name? Boris? Yeah. So that's what they're eluding in California, which technically is not really on their balance sheet. You have to dig a little bit deeper. But anyways, Celine, please pop the dividend question, please.
And to change our attitude as well, because we just connecting strategy. There's definitely opportunities to rebrand some of our products. We love registered trademarks. I have only one. And so we feel that there's
Yeah, so one of the biggest problems that nanotech has with is basically, brand protection. And I mean, for that company, they actually don't really need brand protection because they're really just dealing with central banks. And then because their technology is so niche, they don't really need it. But I guess they're trying to rebrand it.
a lot of great potential in terms of marketing, especially because they're in the brand protection and the banknotes business. Inside.
You kind of already answered my question about the PR timeline, because we should expect more so from the other companies to watch for their press releases instead of materials coming out. You almost put out a day now.
Damn, dude. Sometimes it feels like String is so nice. It's like, we really expect you guys to have more PR. But the thing is, they really need to weigh their legal liabilities when they're doing PR, especially in this stage of this company. And there's some class action lawsuit and some random stuff going on. Therefore, they can't really do a lot of PR. And a lot of those PR, it's not really like something tangible. Like, if you go look at Apple's PR or other companies' PR, those are really tangible stuff. Like, they can provide you a lot of tangible stuff because they don't have it yet. And he doesn't know how to hype the crowd or make it like a Elon Musk similar company or talk about concept or do a lot of really good interviews. He just doesn't have the personality to do it. Therefore, it's a long-term problem.
So you have to wait until it's public.
Or such and such phone a month before the big release, and they release the features. These OEMs, they don't want us to feel that they have to even share the limelight with anyone. So that's another tricky situation where.
Well, let's unpack this. The OEMs, the reason why the OEMs, a lot of those those concept brochures, for those who don't know what concept brochure is, those are not, they're conceptual brochures. That means they are not really in the factory producing. For example, when you have a iPhone, right? Just say you have an iPhone. Sorry, iPhone isn't sponsoring this video, but I will show you how it works. So when you have an iPhone like this, there are different layers, right? When you have conceptual work, when you're doing it in Apple or when you're doing patent or product illustration, you have to do a lot of let's just say cross-sectional things. And then there are a lot of layers. And how OEM does it is they can literally source those materials from different places, but they just pick, a certain like vendor or whatever to do it. And then when they're doing conceptual brochures, a lot of those vendors deals are not finalized. And then some people will walk out of those deals if you're a big company because you have a big dick and can swing around. And then the reason why they cannot disclose it because they're not really sure whether they're actually going to be the finalized vendor or not, or provider or not. It just means George doesn't have a big enough dick to swing around. That's basically what it is.
Where that is necessarily closer timeline in 2022, or do you really have any expectations necessarily on when?
So for the 5G you're talking
Yeah,
about?
right.
So you should refer to our press release. So all the information.
George is like, all the information are in the press release. Do not get any information from me.
Sticky Sweet Burgers mentioned that this year is all about sending us many samples in the hands of developers that are using our products. What's happening now, there's certain types of buildings which are, I have to be careful.
Short answer is it's hard for us to give you a timeline for the smart cities rollout.
So, okay, can I talk about this? Yes, I can talk about this, right? Yes, I can talk about this. So he's talking about a certain type of buildings. So as you all know, right? The reason why I know this is because number two, actually, his family. Anyways, I won't disclose much, but in order to build a building, you have to have a certain, depending on where you're building, and you have to, like, certain materials have to comply to federal legislation or regulation, and then their thing is not really, it's really hard to explain, especially like the 5G rollout is actually stalled right now because with like AT&T and Verizon stalled 5G rollout due to the safety precaution and all this kind of stuff. Therefore, I don't actually see this market going anywhere this year. Same thing with George's reaction. It's not really going anywhere. Again, he got it right. They're too reliant and dependent on their customers, which the customers, those OEMs, right? Like when you become a small manufacturer, you try and do license your things to the OEMs and do all of the things we're doing. What essentially your brain has to figure out is at what point I can flip the table and the low OEM come to me instead of me, they having a leash on us. Not this year.
January 21st options are expired. I believe that the merger has already been completed and we're kind of past that.
Merger with Torchlight?
Yeah.
Merger with Torchlight was completed on June 28th.
Done. Just so I can put that to bed and that would be the
Yeah, the merger with Torchlight is already done. Like, I don't understand why people are talking about legacy options. I don't know who started the rumor. I told my Discord members that it doesn't really matter, and nobody believed me. It only works the opposite case of helping call buyers. But yeah, merger's already closed. They can't really say it's not. On the underground transaction with FINRA, all of the USP, whatever the ticker thing is already done, and yeah, like there's no question there. Yeah, the December 6th drilling thing I briefly talked about, and people shit on me on that, which I don't understand. And again, like they're not gonna give you a lot of information on those kind of stuff. I will post out another video. I consulted someone who does a lot of wildcatting. For those of you who want to know what wildcatting is, you should go search wildcatting oil. That literally just means they're doing exploratory or experimental drilling stage. They're still at that stage. Because me and Nat, that's just a family friend of mine, we analyzed their vertical well and then their vertical well design and then their testing well design, and we sort of figured out the reason why they pull out on 2 wells. And again, my original assertion is correct in terms of like the porosity, water content, all that kind of stuff in drilling. And if you don't understand how oil works, it's really hard from an outside point of view to like a layman point of view to figure out why, nobody's willing to buy. But if you worked in this industry for a long time, you want to know that this is actually a really high risk and high reward operation they're doing here.
Outlining a timeline.
That's what I think.
So, but I want to make a comment about the dividends. You said that we don't care about the dividends. So I want to explain, because I had multiple discussions with both the former chairman of
Okay. He didn't say I have interest in that. Because if he said that, then it would be fishy as hell. But he didn't. That means he actually doesn't have dividends. Remember the video I talked about? He can do it and the other person cannot do it on OTC. The reason why is George or anybody on the material side actually does not have Torch dividend shares. Boom, right? And yeah, all of these bad comments on my comment section, you guys really need to know what is going on in order to make those hate comments. They don't have it. Unless he says explicitly that he has it, then the whole, value chain or conflicts of interest will create.
Torchlight and the former CEO of Torchlight. So this is a group where
So here's what happened. So he's trying to separate metamaterial with whatever old torch asset have. Basically, you know, whenever if there's gonna be a litigation going on, he can just say, oh, we're just. And again, this is one of those fishy things that if you do a reverse merger like this, you have to be careful when you do the vetting of the company that you're merging into. And again, in some of his other interviews, he talked about he should have done the vetting way better. And so if you're in this for this oil value, the value might not come to fruition very immediately, if that makes sense. And then when you have a long-term drawdown of the market, are you really willing to wait 2 or 3 years or maybe even a decade more? And also, like, even if you wait another decade more, maybe they still can find a way to really get those oil out. Again, I will make a video about this. Not all wildcattings are successful operations, but every successful wildcatting actually will yield a huge amount of return if it actually works. But again, for those of you who have questions for those oil related questions, go tag Bronco in our Discord. He's fantastic. He loves explaining things. He's one of, you know, I'm really lucky that we have him in our Discord. And if you have other valuation related questions, just, you know, tag me or tag, you know, mods in our Discord, and, you know, when I have time, I will come to main chat and do, you know, a lot of those answer questioning section in the middle of the night when I have time, or sometimes in the middle of the market when I have time. For Patreon, you will just have a more timely respond, and I will post or put some interesting stuff there on Patreon. Sometimes I will conclude the market or predict the market as it is. But anyways, if you want to support us and making content, you should, you know, join our Patreon, or, you know, just simply smash a like button and subscribe. And also, like, just leave a comment and ask questions, say something, you know.
That's not fair, though. So you should say that.
We do care.
We do care. These people.
We care enough to pay the bills for the drilling and make sure that
It's like, we care. Yeah, because legally they have to take care because of their corporate duty. This is so funny, dude. You all know that Sterling doesn't do those interviews, and Sterling doesn't know. Like, Sterling literally, like, give them limelight. If they say something wrong, it's really bad when they're litigating. Anyways, I think this is it for this video. They basically just said, you know, what it is, and you know, if you watch a little bit longer, they will say that there's gonna be a team and they're paying for the drilling. Of course, they're paying for the drilling because let's just be honest, at least 50% or maybe 60% of all MMAT holders still holds dividends. So I mean, they have to be, you know, they have to make their investors happy. So it is what it is. Like, you know, I still have MMAT shares, but I don't have any MMTLP shares. So for me, the reason why I'm following all of these dividends news or doing all those speculations or spreading facts about MMTLP is because I really care about my subscribers, really care about who watch my content. And if I see anything that's wrong, I want to put the truth out there. And I know CEOs won't tell you the truth because they can't. If they tell you the truth, then, you know, the hell will break loose. Anyways, this is for this video. Hopefully it's not too long. And yeah, I think this is the answers to all of the questions that you guys want me to react to, and see you guys on the upside.